21 years ago, I hated my job. I was working in a toxic culture. I was working for a leader who was manipulative. He lied. He would threaten to fire people. It was affecting my relationships. It was affecting my health. I was actively looking for an escape. I was actively looking for a new job. And then one of the most dramatic events in our country's history, one of the most painful events in our history happened, the 9/11 terrorist attack. And as bad of an event that was, it saved me. You see, back then I was a reservist in the military, and I got recalled back to active duty because of the events of 9/11. And despite knowing that I was going to be spending time away from my family, I jumped on the chance. And if I'm to be honest, I thoroughly enjoyed being able to tell my boss that I was not coming back to work because I got recalled back to active duty. There are a lot of people today who are looking to change jobs. We are currently going through what's been called the Great Resignation or the Great Reshuffle. For as long as it's been recorded, the rate at which workers are quitting is at an all-time high. Workers are not happy in their current situation, and because of that, they're leaving in droves. And many of these workers are not coming back. And because of that, economists are predicting that there's going to be a labor shortage for quite a while. So organizations who are losing their workers are finding a hard time getting them back. So now more than ever, is it critical for organizations to take initiatives to improve the retention of their workers, because losing a worker is very expensive and trying to attract a new worker is almost impossible. So more than ever, organizations need to focus on worker retention. When organizations lose a worker, they often believe that the reason was because of pay. They see one of their employees leave, and when they leave, they take a job that often pays more, and so therefore they believe that pay was the issue. But in reality, pay is rarely the major issue. Sometimes it is, but after decades of research, it's been overwhelmingly proven that the reason workers leave is not because of money, but because of other needs that aren't being filled. Now, these needs vary, and the research will classify them in different ways, but there are really four groups of needs, four types of needs that employees are looking for to be filled in their jobs. And when they're not filled, these are the reasons why employees leave. Now, the first need is competence. Competence reflects the need that workers want to be good at what they do. They want to do a good job. They want to be skilled and capable of doing their job to the best of their ability. And when a worker does not feel competent, when they're placed in a position in which they struggle to do a good job, that can be frustrating. And when a worker is frustrated because of this, they may start looking for other opportunities. The second type of need has to do with autonomy. This is the need for us to be able to have some say in our jobs, to be able to provide input on how the job is done, where it's done, the procedures on how to do it. Workers do not want to simply be told what to do and not have any input in the job itself. And this actually became more evident during COVID-19. As workers had to start working from home, they discovered how nice it was to have some additional autonomy, and it was very satisfying for them. And so organizations that are trying to bring these workers back are sometimes struggling because this need is no longer being filled. The third type of need is purpose. We as human beings want to have purpose in our lives. We want to be able to spend time doing things that matter, both for us and for other people. And so organizations that do not have purpose or do not communicate what the purpose is to their employees may find that those same employees are not satisfied because they do not understand what they're doing is important. And the fourth need is harmony. This is the need to have balance across all areas of your life. We sometimes talk about work life balance. And we kind of consider this as two separate entities that we want to keep totally separate. But in reality, they're intertwined. And it's important for us to have harmony across all areas of our life, our work, career, family, friends, our social life, our finances, our spiritual life. And when that harmony is out of balance, we can become frustrated or look for ways to bring it back in balance. And sometimes that's looking for a different job. So these are the 4 groups of needs that workers are looking to fill. And none of them have anything to do specifically with money. But when these one or more of these needs are not being filled, then that can cause dissatisfaction with workers and cause them to want to look for other opportunities. So as an organization, what can an organization do then to help fill these needs? Well, there are 5 things in which an organization can do to help fill these 4 needs that I just talked about. The first one is making sure that workers are a good fit for the jobs that they're in, including when an organization hires new workers. Several years ago, I hired a woman for my company, and she had all the skills and talents that I needed for the job. And she was doing a terrific job. But 6 months after coming on board, she quit to look for other opportunities. And she told me at that time that the reason she quit was that she missed working in a team. She missed a team environment where there were colleagues near her that were working on a common organizational goal. The problem is this job that she was in required a lot of independent work. And she told me in the interview process that this was important to her, and I ignored it. And because of that, she left after 6 months. Had I taken that into consideration, I may have been able to tailor the job more to her needs or recognized it was not a good fit and moved on. Because of that incident, I now make sure that every person I hire, I ask them, or not just ask them, they need to prove to me that the position they're applying for will help them achieve their personal and professional goals. You see, organizations spend a lot of time making sure candidates have the skills and knowledge to fill their role, but they don't always spend enough time making sure the opposite is true and that the role is a good fit for them. Same thing with workers within the organization. Often workers are in poor fitting jobs or they're put in a position that's a bad fit. And that can lead to dissatisfaction if it doesn't allow them for their needs to be met. So making sure you have employees in good job fits is one thing organizations can do. A second thing is create a development plan for every employee. This is to fulfill the need for competence. Most workers want to be developed. They want to improve their skills. And so it's imperative that leaders take the time to talk to each employee to find out what it is they want to do next, where they want to take their career, what knowledge and skills do they want to have or to gain to allow them to excel in their jobs, either their current jobs or their future jobs. And then with that employee, develop a plan of action to help that employee gain those skills. By doing so, you help that employee become competent. And it's that competence that's one of the needs that all workers are looking for. The third thing organizations can do is that leaders can communicate the purpose or the why. If you've ever listened or heard anything from Simon Sinek, he talks about this extensively. Organizations needing to communicate the why, more than the how or the what, but communicating the why, to understanding purpose. None of us wants to waste our time, but we feel we're wasting our time on whatever it is we're doing if we don't feel there's a purpose to it. So organizations need to have their leaders regularly communicate why. Senior leaders need to communicate why the organization exists, why their products and services are needed by their customers. And lower level supervisors and managers need to be able to communicate why each position exists, why each worker is needed. And even the most menial of tasks, and especially the most menial of tasks, be able to communicate why that task is important. Only by doing that will workers understand their purpose. And only once they understand their purpose can this need for purpose be fulfilled. The fourth thing organizations can do is they can develop a motivation plan for each employee. Now, what do I mean by a motivation plan? We often think of motivation as some leader like Braveheart or Patton standing in front of a group of people providing this motivational speech. And yes, that can be motivational, but the best motivation, true, solid, strong motivation, comes from within. And it's very much individual to each person based on what's most important to each individual. This is why money incentives don't always work for companies, because not everybody's motivated by money. The only way to understand what each person or each worker in an organization is motivated by is to get to know them, and not just get to know them professionally, but personally. Leaders can take the time and should take the time to talk with each of their team members and to find out about their families, about their friends, their hobbies. What do they like to do in their free time? These are the things that motivate us. And the more leaders can understand and learn about these important items in each worker's lives, the better they can develop a plan and help each worker fulfill those most important needs. And literally create a plan to help develop this motivation internally in each employee and develop a culture that allows these employees to pursue their most important things in life. This is a motivation plan, and when employees are motivated, they're going to be more engaged and they're going to stick around. Finally, the fifth thing is to develop leaders. Everything I've just talked about are behaviors that leaders need to exhibit. Communications that leaders need to have with their workers. Many leaders and organizations were promoted or came from roles which they were very technically competent, and because of their strength as an employee, they got promoted to be in a leadership role. But the skills of leadership are different, and they are a skill. And leaders, just like any other workers, want to be competent. So not only do you want to develop leaders, should organizations develop leaders to help with retention, but also to help leaders to be competent and happy themselves so as not to lose your leaders. To tell you how impactful leadership can be, I'd like to share a story from just a few years ago. My company, my team was working with an organization that was suffering from a poor culture, and they had a very high turnover. Employees were leaving in high numbers. And the president of this company recognized that there was a problem with one of his senior leaders. And he finally decided to change the leadership. Now, while it's usually, we always prefer to develop leaders and not to get rid of them, in some cases that may be necessary. In this case, it was. And this president of this company changed out his leader. After that happened, the impact was quick and dramatic. Within weeks, not only did his workers stop leaving, but they began to communicate to former workers about the changes in the culture, and some of these former workers wanted to come back. So not only did his leadership reduce the number of employees that were quitting, it also began to attract new workers. And in today's day and age, not only to be able to retain workers, but to be able to attract them is extremely important. Now, as for that job that I had 21 years ago, well, eventually I had to go back to it. My active duty got done, and I had to go back to this job that I didn't like. But when I returned, something strange happened. When I met with this very bad leader who I used to work for, he did two things. The first thing he did was he offered me a different position that was a better fit for me. It was a position in which I was going to have less stress, and one in which I was going to gain some new skills that I wanted to develop. The second thing he did for me was he sent me home. he sent me home for a week and gave me a free week of vacation above and beyond the benefits that my job had, because he learned that I was not able to spend time with my family due to when I returned from active duty. And because of that, he gave me some time off to do that. Those two things were exactly what I needed at the time. And because of those two things, I stuck around for a little longer. Thank you very much and good luck.